Am I surprised? No. Am I going to laugh at it? Yes. It looks like Gushing Over Magical Girls was a bit too spicy for TVTropes. They have decided to completely ban the product off the website, including the manga. Like they went back to the manga and took the manga out of it as well. But yes, as a lot of people have probably noticed last night, as recording of this, a lot of people were taking note of the fact that TVTropes has removed Gushing Over Magical Girls, and not just the anime, like I said, but also the manga. And like I said, the first notice that I seen of it, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. It's their website, whatever they want to do. I have no hat in the game. I barely have ever used the site. I think I've maybe used it twice in the entire history of the internet that it's been there. But yes, I did have that initial reaction that a lot of other people do have. Like, okay, what else do they have on the website? How consistent is this? That's the thing that always comes up whenever it comes to this whole kind of mightier than thou. Like that mindset of like, oh my gosh, this thing is so terrible, it needs to get off of here. And yes, immediately, a lot of people bring up the usuals. Yep, looks like Cuties is still on there. A show that literally has underage children. Like physically they exist. They are real children on this thing, and they are not removed. Like this is not removed. This is actually depicting it physically. It actually exists in the world. They had cameras on it. Like this isn't drawn fictional characters. These are actually real children. That is okay to be on the website. And yes, and it's probably not going to be there for very long at this point, but yes, we can already note a lot of other anime that have equally as young characters all over the place. To Love Ru, and yes, Prisma Ilya. I see a lot of people saying, hey, there's Prisma Ilya still. But a majority of people are still kind of pointing out, yeah, you have Cuties on there. But that's okay. That's fine. We see everything. Okay, mods of the TVTropes website. We know where your preference is. You like the real stuff. We get it. All right. No need to project. But no, that my rant and joking aside, like I said, I have no hat in the game. This doesn't offend me. I did find it interesting though. Whenever something like this happens, I don't get personally offended. I don't really get upset. I just kind of find the humor in it, and I find the intrigue in it as to how people think. Now, when the show was actually airing, yeah, when I seen the show, I was like, yeah, I covered it on a weekly basis. I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was so much fun. I love the characters. Utena is so twisted and so interesting in the development of her as essentially from a very timid girl to the point that she is getting interested in the magical girls, obsessed with the magical girls, and then wanting to see the expressions of the magical girls, and that basically making a villain. That was the intrigue in it. I love that aspect of it. I absolutely adored it. But I easily said to people, if it's uncomfortable to you, don't watch it. If it bothers you, don't watch it. I'm not going to sell people on it. I'm not going to tell you have to watch it or you're a prude if you don't. Just don't watch it. It's fine. But at the end of the day, no matter what, and this is my argument for a lot of things, if it is art, it should exist. If it is fictional, it should exist. I believe that despite the fact that, yeah, you can claim, okay, well, it labels them this character is this age, whatever. At the end of the day, I think it should exist, and people should decide if they don't want to watch it or not, or get away from it if it bothers them. Or yes, to go the extremes, if it makes you attracted to real things, get away from it. You should not be anywhere near it. I don't have that problem. I can distinguish between the two worlds. And I think there's maybe possibly a lot of people that doesn't happen for them. But anyways, again, Gushing Over Magical Girls removed from the website. Now, I think I've seen some people say that the website itself, when you go to Gushing Over Magical Girls, it said specifically there that it violated their terms, and it is, what's the term everybody uses for this to hide around it? Depictions of youngs in inappropriate ways, in extremely inappropriate ways. That word, that's backwards, but you get my drift. But I didn't see that. The website I seen pretty much says it's violated their content policies, and then it has a link to go to the discussion. Now, this is where I found a lot of interesting things, is that I know that there's a knee-jerk reaction for a lot of people to see, oh my gosh, that group got involved with the website and had them bring it down. But that's not really the case. I really do feel like, again, like I said earlier, it's their decision. It's their website. They can choose what they want to do with their website. I don't care. Take all the stuff, take all the anime out of it. I don't care. It's not going to affect me at all. But I do want to point out that I am at least intrigued and give some respect to them that they actually discussed it. This was a long, ongoing discussion with the mods on that website, whether or not they wanted to leave it there. So credits to them. This wasn't just one person going, oh my gosh, young characters, I just was told about this, and my kid told me about this magical girl show. I need to get rid of it. Hey guys, get rid of it, get rid of it. No, this was a debate. They had a long debate about whether or not they wanted to keep it. Now, I will point out that it more seems that the discussion itself was more catered towards whether or not they wanted to remove it all. It seemed like a lot of them were pretty on board with the idea of just getting rid of the anime and leaving the manga. And for the reasons of, for those that don't know, I actually read the manga alongside the anime as I was covering the show as it was airing. And yes, I made it very clear that the anime went above and beyond. Like, it was going way further than the manga. The manga pretty much has like the non-existence of things like the dots on the chest and all that kind of stuff. They were much so kind of skirting it a lot more than the anime. The anime just like, okay, let's just show things. Let's just go with it. Nothing below, but they were showing all the uppers. And so that was kind of a thing that was obvious there. And again, they kind of went a little bit further with a lot of the expressiveness of the acts. So I get their point there. That, yeah, you can probably leave the manga, just get rid of the anime. But unfortunately, it does seem like as time went on, certain investigators looked into it further, and they wanted to make everybody known. They had one individual in that thread that was the type that you kind of wonder if they're projecting. Like, they went and they did like all the research. Like, they did a full manga breakdown, like all like 40 some chapters. They went through the whole thing and skimmed the whole thing. And then they gave a whole breakdown and said, oh my gosh, I need to bleach my eyes out. I'm like, sure, sure, guy. You just went through looking at all that for research, right? But they pretty much everybody took his word for it, or her word for it, whoever they are. They chose that they didn't like this manga, so they wanted the manga gone too. So that's what kind of seems like happened. Most of them were going, yeah, I'm seeing this. It looks like the manga is a lot cleaner. Let's keep the manga. Oh, the anime, yeah, they're going way too far. They're going further with it. Let's get rid of just the anime. And then eventually somebody comes in and says, no, the manga's bad too. And then everybody started agreeing with that person until eventually it came to a vote and they pretty much got rid of it. But for a while there, it seemed like they were kind of half and half on just leaving the manga up, which I would agree. I honestly would agree the idea that if you are more against what the anime is showing, the manga it's still there. It's still present. It's still suggesting it. The scenes are still there. But yes, they do go a bit further with showing things. And again, the dots and all that kind of stuff. But I did find it interesting. The thread itself started way back in late February. And it started with somebody saying, haven't read or seen it. But judging by the description, it's a seinen manga with heavy BDSM themes where most of the characters are 14 or younger. And the anime even has explicit nudity. Yes, that's true. I mean, again, very top-heavy type of nudity, but it does exist. And again, I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to tell people that they're prudes or whatever. But like I said, over time, a lot of them are kind of saying they want to wait for the entire release of the anime before they make a decision, which I give them credit for that. Again, I want people to know that based on my looking into this thread, it does look like they actually made this a discussion. This wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. They actually thought this through for the content of their website, which again, I'm not arguing that they're not being inconsistent here. I made the joke too, the cuties joke, I made it. So I do recognize this is inconsistencies here, but at least they actually discussed it. But yeah, one person made a full breakdown of the manga. I'm not going to put this up on the screen. You're going to get just pictures of Gushing Over Magical Girls because I don't want to censor every 2 seconds of these images and these quotes, okay? One of the individuals says, this is one I have a hard time with in either box. I'm currently leaning towards keep. The one obvious childish character is not involved in any of the shenanigans if our page is right. Yeah, that's pretty much what we're getting to Alice. Alice is like, I think even at some point somebody mentioned the idea that they have preteens in here. And I'm like, yeah, I haven't read further in the manga, but we're talking about the anime here. And Nero Alice is the only one that you would probably see as being preteen. And even with her, she's not involved with anything. They keep her away from it. Yes, she does acts that are kind of innocent that will affect other characters, but she herself is not involved in the act in a sense. So it doesn't necessarily fall in that same category. But again, fictional characters, what are you going to do with that? Seems like a show trying to actively avoid Edo pandering vibes, even if the normal ages of other more statured magical girls are even on the low end. And that's the kind of problem that this series runs into. Magical girls, it's a playoff of magical girls. And so they're going to be magical girls. And so it's kind of one of those difficulties of like, yes, it is going for a more adult theme, and it's raunchy, and it's got that humor going there. It's deconstructing certain aspects of magical girls itself or villains. And yes, you're going to have the issue with, yes, they're going to be younger in age. And again, still keeping in mind, for me anyways, it's fictional. It's not like I see these characters as children. It's just that's what they're kind of going for, is that trope. And yeah, it's kind of it comes with it, unfortunately. I haven't read somebody else says I haven't read the original manga yet, but from what I've gathered in my research, I love when I research. The work itself focuses on plot first and foremost, with a fan disservice being secondary. Also, judging by the tropes present, this looks to be a deconstructive parody more than anything. For that, I am voting to keep this work. And that's kind of where I was hitting, even though they got flamed for that, saying, oh, what are you talking about? It doesn't make it right. Again, I agree. If it's your website and that's your policies, go with it. Another one says, I'm going to vote to keep all versions, reluctantly. It feels like torching it would be a bit overzealous and silly, but I won't miss if it's gone. Massive credits to that person. Again, this is kind of where I kind of fit for a lot of things like this, where I see that it should stay because it needs to exist. But at the same time, you can say, honestly, but I don't like it. I don't like this, but I can vote that it should exist. That's, again, been my argument with the whole situation that's been happening with a lot of the artist sites in Japan that are kind of getting blocked elsewhere, is this mindset of, one, who dictates what is the character's age or its ability to consent and all that kind of stuff when it is a fictional character? Who's going to look over a person's shoulder when they're drawing ahead and go, oh, that's obviously underage? It's a fictional character. It's a drawing. How can you dictate its age? And again, if it consents or not. It's all that difficulty that comes with that. Next comment says, does this even matter when the fact remains most of the characters are expressly stated as being only 14, and said fan service scenes, which occur in mostly every chapter, repeatedly cross into borderline hentai and even softcore hentai situations? Doesn't that in and itself constitute a breaching of content policy? Again, if that's their policy, I don't really care. Also, character appearing to be a child while still being subjected to the same sort of raunchy shenanigans as the other characters strikes me as pretty blatant. Edo pandering. This is the individual that keeps bringing up, like, this is there again, like I said, there's like one individual throughout the entire group that just feels like, oh my gosh, this is obviously going for this. Which I think that's the person that kind of pushed it over. So I'm not going to say their name. People can find it out. They're going to be finding it out by themselves. And this is where that individual goes on their full-on investigation. Again, I think it's projecting. Looking at the guidelines put forth in the content violation discussions, rules, and forms procedure page, going by the 4 criteria listed in the what we're looking for section. Pure prawn or prawn with an excuse plot only. No. They actually acknowledge that it's not going for an excuse for it plot. The manga does have a fairly involved plot that parodies the traditional tropes and magical genres. Props to them for that. At least they acknowledge that. They're acknowledging that this isn't just purely for the sake of showing this stuff. It has a plot and a through line. It's just that is a aspect that comes into the picture, which again, like I mentioned, is essentially what I like the series for. Next point, anything that has explicit underage lips. Yes, the main characters and most of the rivals are 14, repeatedly engage in explicit activities that are played out for fan service. The only saving grace is that even they call it that, it's just softcore. I guess I have a different definition of the sex part, but yeah, I guess I'm not going to argue it. Implies of preteen and younger, no, debatably. And this is where they point out, at least they point out the fact that Nero Alice is pretty much not usually involved in a lot of that stuff. She's more involved with the ecchi stuff, and again, is kind of a tool to cause the other stuff. Next point, fan service, intended to cater to Edo aisles. Yes, a debatable example, but Magia Sulfur and Leberbloom are flat and 14 who are still subjected. Does this person have a problem with flat characters? Are we projecting? Do we have a problem with flat characters? I've never understood that. I have never honestly understood the idea that because the character depicted is flat, that means young. Yes, technically development happens at some point in people, but some people don't develop, and there's no reason to shame them. Were we shaming flat characters? Anyways. That went on, and somebody else pointed out, I'll concede that TV Tropes is for fans to talk about things they like. That's one of the primary goals, along with collecting trope examples and performing analysis. It's just that sometimes people have a hard time drawing lines between what they like and what's appropriate to talk about in a family-friendly context. That's totally like one of those like, oh, there's nudity. I'm afraid. This is a family-friendly website that has cuties and other really raunchy shows. And I would argue just tons and tons of adult content's on that website, be there mostly Western. And we're going to be okay with that? I mean, and now I do agree that it seems like a lot of people are pointing out that people are posting imaging and stuff like that was very explicit. So I can probably say that a lot of this might be bumped over by the fact that fans of the series were being raunchy and posting stuff that they really shouldn't have been posting. They're literally drawing attention to it. But yeah, like I don't know if I'd feel comfortable hypothetically talking to my coworkers who aren't trope addicts about how much I enjoy that chapter where the child mind controls some young teenager into sex thingy. It would generate an awkward looks at very least. That's anime in general. That's a lot of mediums, not just anime. There's a lot of stuff that is going to bring awkward looks. That doesn't mean it shouldn't exist. What's the argument there? That because something happens in the show that is upsetting, but that's anime in general. Anime in general has this idea that it doesn't have filters. With most mediums, especially Western mediums, and you can probably, again, find arguments with things like cuties. If I watched Cuties, I would be uncomfortable telling anybody that I watched it. Honestly, from what I've seen of it, I haven't watched the whole thing. From what little I've seen of it, I felt uncomfortable and stopped watching it. Again, why? I'm watching Gushing Over Magical Girls. Why did Andrew of Otaku Spirit feel uncomfortable watching Cuties when he watched Gushing Over Magical Girls? Because Gushing Over Magical Girls, I can distinguish, is drawn and fictitious. When I watched Cuties, or what little I watched of it, I felt uncomfortable because it's real children. That's the distinction there. Why is that? That's, again, the inconsistency blows my mind. Anyways, maybe it's a culture thing, but I don't want to be a part of the culture where it's normalized, and we collectively don't want TV tropes to be either. Wow, there's probably the worst comment out of all of it. Again, that's kind of a mightier than thou kind of thing. I don't know, this culture's normalizing it, and I don't want to normalize it either. But what I was getting to my point earlier was the fact that, yes, the problem that a lot of anime has is that it doesn't have filters like other nations and other mediums. And again, despite a couple of cases that you can point out, especially like Hollywood and stuff like that, they have filters because they want it to be acceptable by a broad audience. They're going for family friendly because they want to get the market. If the market was to be unfamily friendly, no doubt Hollywood would have tons of stuff in it that would be extremely explicit. Hollywood goes to the money. They're not arbiters of purity. They're going for the money. And if the money was there, they would do it. And I would argue that a lot of groups and companies in Hollywood are doing that stuff. They're just doing it under the table. They have their own groups that are doing prawn and stuff like that. It's just when they're in their face in Hollywood, they're doing the family friendly. They're trying to capture the large audience. And so, yes, with Japan, they don't have that. They just do whatever they want to do. And that's what I love about it. That's what I've always loved about anime, is it does whatever it wants to do. Gushing Over Magical Girl, it is completely unapologetic, just doing whatever it wants to do. And that's what makes it interesting. And again, not because the characters are depicted or labeled as being young or whatever that I'm going for it. No, because it has it's messed up and it's weird, and I love it for that. And again, it's not because of the ages, because again, I'm uncomfortable watching things like Cuties. I'm perfectly fine with this because why? I can distinguish that is fictional characters. They don't exist. And that's what makes it okay. They're voiced by adults. It's drawn by adults. It's completely and utterly fictitious. That's why. But anyways, after that, they pretty much came to an agreement. We're going to shut it down. Let's all vote. It shuts it down. And that's why. That's the story of why Gushing Over Magical Girls no longer exists on TV Tropes. I hope you guys like this run through of this. And yes, the insanity of what I would argue is inconsistency. Like I said, when I seen this news, I wasn't bothered by it. I honestly didn't really care. But at the end of the day, the oddity that comes from this whole situation is just laughing at the fact that it causes that inconsistency thing where everybody's now like just pouring through TV tropes and going, why does Prisma Ilya exist? Why does Cuties exist? Why does Prisma Ilya To Love Ru? Why does To Love Ru exist? Somebody even pointed out Magical Girl Spec Op Oxka, which has, yes, some pretty similarly inappropriate scenes as Gushing Over Magical Girls. Why does that exist? It just, the line keeps going down. It's like it almost kind of goes to earlier where, like I said, somebody was going, we shouldn't be overzealous. We should kind of let it exist. It's like one of those persons was actually pointing out, hey, we should probably leave this because it's probably going to cause a lot of these other things to be questioned. And so where are we going to draw that line? Again, I give them credits for having the discussion, sitting there, looking through it, figuring out, hey, should this exist? Was this show? I kind of agree with a lot of them. I think they probably should have left that one, the manga in there and just removed the anime. I based on their argument that they made, they should remove the anime because it doesn't follow their policies. And again, I respect their policies, their website, they can do whatever they want. But it seems like a lot of the cases, the manga sort of skirted that a lot. And that was a lot to do with the fact that the location that it was at, it's a foreign film, so to speak. I think they noted this foreign film aspect. I don't know the full thing to that, so that could be completely wrong if they stated that. There's the aspect that it was more, again, clean. It didn't show things. It didn't show the dots on the chest, all that kind of stuff. That could be allowed in that case, but it didn't work out, so there you go. But I had a little bit of fun looking through it. I hope you guys had fun going with me down the rabbit hole. If you did, make sure that like button down below, comment, let me know what you think of this whole situation. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button to my content. I do news reviews, first impressions, top list if it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you like this content, you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips, links, and thanks to membership down below. Greatly appreciate what it does, and y'all take care. And y'all make sure to check out my episode by episode impressions of the series too. Bye.